Okay, can you guys all hear me? Carrie, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, because I can see you. All right, welcome to the Business Plan Competition Semifinalist Workshop. Thank you guys for being here. We are recording, I think, so you should be able to re-watch this as many times as you would like. I will also send out a copy of the PowerPoint, and I will also send out all of the scoring rubrics for you. So today we are going to cover what the customer discovery is, some tools for research so you can be successful in that customer discovery. We're going to be talking about primary research. We're going to talk to you about how to do an elevator pitch, and we're going to get to watch a mock interview, and then we'll talk about any questions at the end. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to unmute yourself or throw them in the chat. We will be monitoring the chat. Let's get started. Thank you to our speakers for volunteering your time today. We have Dr. Carrie White, who's with the Launch Lab, Ann Jones, who's also with the Launch Lab, and Jessica Vanderhoff, who is with WVU Library. So they will be talking to you guys and will be your subject matter experts for the day. And I am Tara St. Clair. I work in the Encova Center for Innovation Entrepreneurship, and I'm just kind of your MC for the day. So let's talk about what the semifinals are going to look like. Typically, we do it in person. As you can see in that picture, that's what the one-on-one interviews usually look like, but we are going to be moving it onto Zoom this year. You'll be doing customer discoveries and the 2-minute elevator pitch before February 1st, so the judges have time to score those. So when you go into those one-on-one interviews the week of February 8th, they will already know a little bit about your business. Your scores from round 1 do not transfer over to round 2, so everyone is starting on the same playing field. After we go through all of this, we have 23 semifinalists, and we're going to narrow it down to the top 10. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today are the customer discoveries. So this is something that you'll be submitting online via Reviewer, which is that same platform that you used in round 1. You have from now until February 1st by noon to submit that. And Dr. Carrie White will be talking to you a little bit more about what this means, but basically we're going to ask you to interview 10 potential customers between now and then. And then we want you to summarize what you found in 5 pages or less, because remember, these judges are going to be scoring lots of your submissions. Just some basics on that we want them double-spaced, 12-point font. You can use pictures, those are permitted. Your page count does not include your cover page, your table of contents, or any appendices. We do want you to have that cover page. We want you to describe what your business is so the judge knows when they're reading that. You're going to be talking about your ideal customer, you're going to be talking about customer segments, and you're going to be talking about those interviews that you conduct, which I am going to let Jessica and Carrie talk about that a little bit more. So I believe Jessica was going to talk about the definitions with customer discovery and customer segment.
Hi guys, it's good to see some of you. Others, I'll just be talking into the ether of Zoom. So as Tara said, my name is Jess Vanderhoff, and I'm the Business and Entrepreneurship Librarian here at WVU. And so today, in a few minutes, we're going to be talking about some tools that are going to lead you to the secondary research or the published research on your customer segments. And so typically when we think about customer segments, we're really looking for a description of 3 things. So the easiest way to think about a customer segment is thinking about demographic, psychographic, and geographic. And what most of you are probably familiar with the term demographic. So with demographic, we're thinking about gender, we're thinking about age, marital status, right? And so thinking about whatever your business idea is, you know, who is your target audience? Some of you might have businesses that have very wide appeal, but you want to really think about, you know, who is the primary consumer of that product or service. So while demographic explains who your buyer is, right? The psychographic, which might be an unfamiliar term to some of you, is those characteristics that explain why they buy or why they consume the things that they do. So this includes more information about attitudes, values, belief systems. So it could be somebody who is very health conscientious or someone who is environmentally friendly. So kind of those implicit characteristics that influence our daily purchasing behavior. And then the last thing when we talk about consumer segmentation is geographic, right? And so with geographic, we're thinking it can be as specific as a location such as Morgantown or West Virginia, but it could also include things like a large college town or an inner city. And so kind of those things, again, does the location of the brick and mortar business or even the e-commerce business, whether it be a service or product, really impact how successful your product or service is going to be. So as Tara mentioned, Dr. White and I are going to be talking about the primary difference between primary and secondary. So the expectation, again, is that you guys are going to go out and collect information firsthand from folks who you think are your target customer segment. In addition to the primary research or the research that you're going to be collecting firsthand from folks, it's also expected that you're going to be doing research on the web. And so in a few minutes, I'm going to be talking about some of those tools to help you locate more information about demographic, psychographic, and geographic information that's going to provide additional evidence to let the judge or the evaluator of your pitch know that you've really done the research and you've really thought through who your target market is going to be. So I'm happy to field any questions, but otherwise, Dr. White and I will be going into more specific details about the primary and the secondary research. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. White.
Yeah, so I was trying to find my mute button, and because I said, that looks like my slide. So I want to echo what Tara and Joseph already said. Congratulations to all of you who are made it this far into the competition. That's awesome. And I wanted to talk a bit about the different types of research and developing and doing your customer discovery. You all are familiar with the business model canvas because you had to do that already for this competition. And so the purpose of the customer discovery is really to develop that whole right side of the canvas. So you have your customer relationships, your customer segments, how you're going to get to the customer and those kinds of things. And that's super important to continue to build on as you're heading into the final stages of the competition. So as Jess said, just to kind of clarify what the terminology means, I want to get into a little bit about how you're actually going to conduct this research. And then, of course, this is all going to be pretty high level stuff. As you're moving through the next few weeks, you'll be able to work with your coaches or your business advisors to get more of the details. But this is just kind of the process that we recommend that you follow. So you'll be working with Jessica on the databases and the resources for collecting your initial secondary research. And as she said, this is research that's already published, research that's already out there that you can access through the databases in order to develop your customer segment. And basically what the customer segment is, and I'm going to just kind of go over a little bit more of this because I know some of you may already know this information, but it might be new to others. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same level playing field. The customer segment are basically you're segmenting out based on the geographic, demographic information that Jessica said, the people who are going to be most likely to purchase your product or most likely show interest in your innovation. So they could be male, female, they could be of a certain age bracket, they could have a certain income level, they could live in a certain region of the country or the world. But that secondary research is really going to help you flesh out the descriptors of that segment. So who are those people that are going to be most interested? I'll send out a couple warnings to everybody now. If a judge asks you who your customer is, please, please, please don't say everybody. That's never, never, never the right answer. So please keep that in the back of your mind. There are segments of people who are going to be your customers, but there are going to be segments of people who are not going to be your customers. So we want to also know who those people are. So first step, develop that segment, right? Who are these people? And then the second step is going to be narrowing down that segment, because if you come up with, males between the ages of 22 and 30, and, they have this income level, and, they're all over the world, what have you, you're not going to be able to target all of those people. So we want to think about who is that initial target market that is going to be most likely to either purchase my product or want my innovation, or best ever, whose problem am I solving, right? So if they have a problem, I want to be able to address that problem, but I need to know who they are and what problem they're having. So it's not necessarily trying to sell just yet, because we're not to the point where we're selling, but we're to the point where we're identifying problems and opportunities. And so when you start to conduct your primary research, well, I'll talk about that in just a minute. That's the kind of information that you'll want to gather. So who's having a problem? Who is that target market, and how am I addressing that problem? How am I solving that problem? Or how am I creating an opportunity for that group of people? So you're going to do your secondary research. You're going to come up with your segment. From that segment, you're going to narrow down your focus into a target market, which is going to be those, we call it almost like the low-hanging fruit. Who are those first people who are going to be most interested in what you have, right? Not just friends and family, right? So not friends and family, but actual consumers in the market, okay? The third step then is to develop your ideal customer persona. And the customer persona is an actual person that you'll create. And I know Jessica does a great job on going into this with everybody, but really what you're looking for is a person, male or female, give them an age, give them a name. So my customer persona might be Michael, and he's 25 years old, and he just graduated from college, and he's looking for a job, and he's having a hard time with interviews because everything's on Zoom, and he's having a hard time meeting people. And, I might have, and he's, he's got an accounting degree. And your technology, your innovation, whatever you have that you've developed might be something that can help solve Michael's problem, right? But that's going to be your persona. Once you determine who your persona is, how many Michaels are out there? How many people are sharing his same problem? And how many people like him can you create an opportunity for? And that's going to be that persona. So we're really just kind of whittling down from segment to target to person, an actual person. And when you're speaking to judges, if you can convey that information to them, it really goes a long way, because they want to know you know who your ideal customer is. And it's not everybody, and it's not all males, and it's not all females, because, all males and all females are not the same. And it's not people who live in the southern states versus the northern states. These are real people, right? And so we want to identify them as closely as we can. Okay, so once you've done those three things, and take a little time with it, because it's not something that you're going to do overnight. You're going to need to do some research and think about it. And once you think you know who the ideal persona is, you're going to go out and talk to them. And I know Tara posted in multiple places the link to Talking to Humans, right? The best book ever. And you can read it in an hour. But it's a great guide on how do you go out and talk to people and gather this information. So create a customer survey. But what we don't want you to do is try to sell, right? Don't even mention your product or your business. just ask about the problem that you can solve for them or the opportunity that you can address for them. This is really difficult for most people. So if you struggle with this, don't feel like you're the only one, because creating these surveys, you're conducting primary research. You're going out and you're getting information that doesn't exist elsewhere, right? And you're applying it to your innovation. So, you know, for example, I just put a couple of examples here. These are just random, not that these, you know, I developed these from anybody's product, but for example, if I have an innovation around an easier way to shop for healthy food or an easier access to healthy food, you know, I don't want to go out and sell people and say, hey, don't you wish you had easier access to healthy food? What I want to find out from them is describe your experience shopping for healthy food. What is it like? And then let them tell you their story. So they might say, this part I really like, I have access to my store, except I can't go there all the time because of social distancing and I have a hard time accessing it, you know, whatever. But if your innovation addresses that area, then that's what you want to find out. So we're not selling, so please don't try to sell anything, but really just try to discover what your customer's life is like. And then that way you can more appropriately say, they have this problem, I have this solution. If I have a solution that they value, they're going to pay me money for it. Right? And then just another example I put in there, describe the last time you bought baby clothes. So maybe you have a solution for people who are struggling accessing baby clothes, or, you know, whatever your innovation happens to be. Okay, and then the way you're going to conduct this primary research, normally, you know, under normal circumstances, we would have you go out and actually talk to people face to face. We understand that that's not entirely possible in most cases. So you can do in person, of course, is always the best, but you can certainly call people or do Zoom meetings like this. The minimum for the competition is that you talk to 10 people. 10 people who fit your customer persona, right? It's not just 10 random people, not 10 family members, not 10 people that you just happen to run into on the street, but 10 people who actually fit your customer persona. So whatever you identify that customer persona to be, find 10 people that fit that description that you can talk to. And then determine if they have a problem, if they have a need, or an opportunity that you can fulfill.
Carrie, I have a question.
Tara, okay, I have no idea how I am on time, so you'll just have to shut me up when I have to stop.
You're doing okay. It's 2:20, but at this point, I'd like to stop and ask students if they have any questions. And I'm going to throw out, I think I saw a couple of coaches on here, and maybe they're asking themselves, how can I best help my student with the customer discovery and figuring out that customer persona? How can they be a better coach to help their teams?
Are you asking me, or are you asking the coaches to jump in?
I'm asking you if you have any suggestions you want to throw out.
Yeah, for the coaches, first of all, thank you, coaches, for being there for these teams. That's awesome. Probably because Jessica does a great job with the doing the secondary research. Probably the hardest part that I've seen, at least, for students is developing the survey and knowing what questions to ask. Because it's really hard to do that, and we recommend that they don't ask more than 10 questions in a survey, because you kind of lose people after that. So developing those questions can be hard without talking about their technology or their innovation, without talking about or trying to sell. So if the more questions that you can include in there, describe something for me or tell me something, leaving the questions open-ended, so then, the students can then collect that information and start to say, okay, I'm understanding that there's a problem, I'm understanding that there's an opportunity, rather than trying to sell somebody on their innovation, just so they can, say, yes, we would want that.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Dr. White before we go to the next slide? Okay. Carrie, do you want next slide or anything else on this one?
No, we can move on. I'm always happy to come back if there's questions later.
Perfect. Okay, so we will throw it over to Jess for this one.
Hey guys, okay, so back to kind of piggybacking off of what Dr. White was just talking about with developing the persona. So obviously this is a multi-step process, kind of starting at that high level and then working from the segment down to the persona. So we need that foundational piece, right, before we can really think about, talking about Jessica, who loves books and dogs and whatever else, whatever else you're trying, however else you're trying to think about your persona. So what I want to do is set you guys up with some tools to better explore the secondary research. So I have a little disclaimer for this one. Not knowing how many of you belong to WVU versus other universities. So there are many database subscriptions. So for those of you who are here at WVU, we have access or subscriptions to databases such as Statista or Mintel, and these are databases that the university purchases on behalf of the students and the faculty to do market research. And so all of the universities and even the West Virginia Public Library System do have databases that offer some of this information. Since not all of you belong to WVU, what I'm going to focus on today is freely accessible resources that you can just access via Google. But I can't encourage you enough to definitely reach out to your local librarian, whether that be somebody at your university, your local public librarian. Sometimes or oftentimes public librarians are very familiar with business resources just because they are helping the local community with small business planning. And then the other thing is, if we actually jump to the last bullet point, is I will be readily available for any of you the week of January 11th. And Tara's going to send out this slide deck if she hasn't already. And you see that hyperlink there, and that's a hyperlink to my calendar so that you can schedule an appointment during that week, so that if you don't have great resources available to you through your public or college library, you will have some access through WVU. And so just kind of start back at the top. What I have developed for you with this first bullet is a kind of a one-stop shop for the freely accessible resources. So I am going to share my screen for a second. Let's see. Tara, can you stop sharing your screen? And let me jump over to this. Bear with me for a second. And can you guys see the library page? Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
we can see it.
Thank you. So for those of you who belong to WVU, there's this page, and I will put this in the chat box once I finish talking. But for the whole group of the people who've made it to who are going to the semifinals, we have access to this business research, open access and free resources. What I want you guys to focus on really is this third tab down, and even for my business coaches, hopefully this will be of assistance to you folks as well. The tab that's labeled demographic and psychographic behavior. On the top of this page, I have the little tutorial that Tara has shared on the Business Plan Competition website. And then here you can see box by box, I have different resources. So the census data, which gives us demographic information. And then I have information about through the Small Business Builder. And then there's a website or a market research firm that's called Claritas. And while they are a paid for resource, part of their website is freely accessible. And that's really going to help with the psychographic component of the research. And so I'm not going to go through all of these here today. but I can't encourage you enough to really explore these, because again, the expectation is that there's going to be clear evidence of secondary research along with those 10 interviews to help you build out the primary piece. And so just to give you a quick demo, here's the census data. And if we go to the census data, what you can do is you can search by location. So I just did a quick search for Morgantown, and you can see just some of the basic demographic information. Obviously, because we're a college town, over half of the population here in Morgantown does hold at least a bachelor degree, if not higher. You can see the median household income. So here are just some basic demographic characteristics of this particular location. So you can just come in, and if there's a certain geographic area, you can just search up in the toolbar for that location. What might be of even more interest is this resource that's called the Small Business Edition, the Census Business Builder. And this is actually a pretty neat tool that the census offers. It looks a little outdated, but it actually affords some really rich information about consumer behavior. So the way that I foresee you guys leveraging this particular tool is, if you come to this page, you can type in, again, thinking about the industry that your innovation falls into, right? So either thinking if you're going to start a fitness center or a florist, or if you have a piece of gym equipment, right? So thinking about the full supply chain. So even though you might not be opening a fitness facility, you might have an innovation, right, that a gym or fitness center would purchase, right, to put into the fitness center. So come here, and in this case, you're not searching for demographic, you're thinking about the industry, right? So in my case, if I just type in, I'm going to use gyms as an example. And another just kind of helpful hint is that be aware of synonyms. Sometimes if you type in gym, like thinking about, going to the gym to exercise, it might not recognize the word gym. So in this case, think about exercise, fitness center, sports club, all of those variations of the word, right? And we have the option for fitness and recreation sports center. And if we select that option, right, it then populates here. And then if you want, you can come over and again, identify the location. So if I have a piece of exercise equipment, or if I have a new group fitness type of exercise like Zumba or one of those types of classes that I would want to offer as my innovation, and I want to look into Morgantown, again, you type in the location, and then you can go to the map. I just create the report, and when you create the report, let's see if it gives it to us. It usually takes a second or two. You get a nice little summary about potential consumers, right? So if you're thinking about your gym or your fitness club, or that exercise class that you want to offer, or that piece of exercise equipment, right? You want to think about, okay, median age is 24. So are you targeting young stay-at-home moms? Are you targeting young working professionals? So the class might have to be, after working hours. So you want to be thinking about, occupation. You want to be thinking about income, right? Thinking about price point. And so you can come down and you can see, right, the various characteristics in Morgantown that would be helpful to fitness centers, right? And if I come down, then you have a business summary. And this is really going to help with, if you're thinking about either competition Or if you're thinking about potential partnerships, right, you have some information about how many fitness centers are there in Morgantown, right? So that could be potentially people who you're going to sell your thing to, or it could be the people you're competing with, right? So just a lot of good statistics and data that are going to really help you think through the segment and the persona. So I'm not going to go into much more detail other than I can encourage you enough to come back to this resource and check out in particular the demographic option, the small business builder, and then Claritas, which is also going to help with the psychographic. And then if Tara can put back up the PowerPoint slide for me.
So the students don't need any special access to get to these links?
So Clinton, with that particular web page, everything is freely accessible, so everyone has universal access. But like I mentioned earlier, each college and university across the state is going to have access to subscription stuff. Okay. And so either reach out to me and I can help you access the WVU subscriptions, or if you're at Marshall or wherever, you're going to have a whole slew of paid for resources, which are going to have a ton of additional, very rich information. And, reach out to the local librarian there and see what market research databases you have access to. Because like I said, the free stuff is great, but it's free for a reason, right? Versus stuff that we're paying thousands of dollars to access, right? Mm-hmm. So reach out to me, schedule an appointment with me that week of January 11th. Otherwise, definitely check out those free resources.
Okay, thank you.
So Jess, I went ahead and threw those in the chat. Now those are the free ones, correct?
So the free one, so folks, the free one is the very first link that Tara shared. The last link, the one that has the word appointments in it, that is my calendar app so that you guys can schedule some time with me the second week of January. And then for folks who are at WVU, you guys can use this link that I'm putting in the chat box right now. And that's gonna require you to authenticate using your WVU credentials.
Great, thanks Jess. And I think this is a good point too. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and you can throw them in the chat or just ask out loud.
Well, I'll be hanging out. So if anyone thinks of anything as we go through this webinar, just pop it in the chat box and I'm happy to field it. Otherwise, I'll be excited to hear about some of your innovations after the new year.
Okay, so Jess, we're good on this slide, right? Is everyone
yes,
okay?
We're all set.
All right, so we'll go to the next slide. And that was some good stuff. All right. So Carrie, I'd ask for you to help me on this one. Guys, we have the scoring rubric up for the customer discoveries. So Carrie, do you mind kind of walking through this with them?
Yeah, of course. So this is, we wanted to provide you all with some guidance on what's expected for your customer discovery. So you kind of, because this might be new for many of you to have done, secondary, primary, and all of this, surveying. So we wanted you to kind of have a guide on what's considered a really great customer discovery process, what's kind of middle of the road, and then maybe what's not so acceptable. So as you're going through this, you know what the expectation is. I broke down the customer discovery process into your customer segmentation, your target market, your customer persona. Tara, you're a master of the emojis or avatar. The primary market research, and then your primary research applied to your customer identification. So you'll all have access to read through these slides, so I won't read every single point to you. But just to get you familiar with what the process should look like in an ideal situation, As we mentioned before, you'll conduct your your secondary customer segmentation research, and then really think about how you want to convey that to the judges. So the research that you did, the customer segment that you identified, how you identified that customer segment, why you selected that particular segment, is all going to be part of your presentation. If you don't, show all of that, then of course your points start to dwindle, as you can see, moving towards the right-hand side. The second step of that target market identified, the same thing. So you've identified that segment, then from that segmentation, you whittle down the target market. You were able to clearly convey why you selected that target market and the process that you followed in order to identify that market. From there into the customer persona, excuse me, we want to use what you collected in your secondary research to create that customer persona, right? So who is it? What do they look like? What do they do? How much money do they make? What do they enjoy? What problems do they have? All of that based on the secondary research that you collected. And then again, you clearly conveyed that information and you're able to explain it. If the judges were to ask you, how did you create this customer persona, then you can give them the process that you followed very clearly and articulate it so that they see how you arrived at this persona. And then the fourth step, of course, is conducting your primary market research. As we mentioned, the minimum number of interviews that you need to do are 10. You're more than welcome to do more than 10. It's always better to do more if you can, but 10 will be the minimum. And then presenting the findings of the customer interviews. So you don't need to identify the people that you spoke with. In fact, they generally don't like to be identified. So it's perfectly fine if you put a summary of your findings together and you say, I interviewed 10 people. And these are the general findings that I have from my customer interviews. It's not necessary that you say, Joe Schmo said this, Mary Adams said this. You don't need to get that detailed, but a summary of your findings, the people that you talked to in general, why you selected those people. Hopefully they're part of your persona. They meet those criteria, and that's why you selected them. And then finally, the bottom part there is a little bit cut off, but I think you can figure out what it says. Applying your customer discovery to your innovation. So what happens a lot of the time, and don't be upset if this happens, if you come back and your customer discovery responses don't necessarily match with your innovation, that's okay. That's a great time to say, all right, I need to pivot. Either my innovation needs to change to match who I've identified as my persona, or I'm talking to the wrong people and I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out a better segmentation process. It could be one or the other, but that's what the discovery process is all about. Am I matching my innovation to the person who's having the problem or the group of people who are having the problem? So if you go out and you find out from the 10 people that you interview, they're not really having the problem that you thought they were having, either you're not talking to the right people or you need to pivot your innovation, and that's okay too. Both of those are completely acceptable. In fact, if that happens and a judge asks you about it, share that information. They'll be very impressed that you collected data and you were willing to pivot based on the information that you collected. That's not a bad thing, right? So just, you don't want to intentionally go talk to the wrong people, but that happens. It happens a lot. So, and it's okay to say, I identified 10 people who I really, really thought were going to be my ideal customer. Turns out that they didn't have the problem that I thought that they did. So now I need to go back and resegment my market or pivot on my innovation. Either one, perfectly fine. But anyway, so I just wanted you to be aware. The judges probably won't be seeing all of this information. This is more for you all to know what's considered the proper way to conduct your research and then present it.
Thank you, Carrie. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. All right, so we are going to move on to the one-on-one Zoom interviews, which will be with the judges. So as I mentioned, the picture at the bottom is what this typically looks like. So we are going to try and recreate that in Zoom. So this will be that week in February, the 8th, and I'm going to set it up Monday through Thursday. So I understand that not everyone is available all day, every day. So I will set it up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I will pick different times during the day. So you will sign up based on times that we have available, but you'll only have to sign up for one day, and you will meet with about 5 judges. So what we'll do is I'll have the Zoom room ready. You will come in, the judges will be assigned to breakout rooms, and then I will throw you into the Zoom room. You will do a 5-minute interview with each of those judges. And then you'll come back to the main room, and then we'll rotate. So I will rotate you through each of the judges, and we'll make sure that the judges have just, a minute of time to score you in between. So today we wanted to let you know what the interviews would look and kind of feel like. So we have a past winner coming, a team that won 2 years ago. So we wanted to do that, and Carrie will be the mock judge for this. And just something that to think about, since you will not be in person, like you can see in this picture how people in the background brought business cards and they brought the resume, and they have, whatever that is there. I think that was the thing that pulled weeds out of the ground, so people didn't have to bend over and hurt their back. But they brought their prototype. So we want to make sure that if you have a prototype or you have something, make sure you bring a picture of it or bring the actual whatever it is and showcase it. So the judges actually know I'm serious about this. I went and I 3D printed it. I made a business card, here it is. I'm going to show you my business card. So we want this to be very interactive with the judges. And the team that will be joining us in just a couple of moments, they are working on logging in here in just a few minutes, will be Iconic Air. They were just announced as Forbes 30 under 30 I think it was last week or maybe the week before last, but they won the business playing competition 2 years ago, and here they are now, Forbes 30 under 30. They still live in Morgantown, West Virginia. Actually, they're working through Vantage Ventures. So this is just something to think about. These guys were seniors in college, entered the business playing competition, and now are in Forbes 30 under 30. So anything is possible, folks. And before we get to the mock interview, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tips and tricks. And I know Ann and Carrie both kind of had some things to throw in here. So if you guys want to talk about any of your tips and tricks, I'll be quiet.
Cool. Shall I jump in and then you can correct me when I'm wrong, Carrie?
Take it away, Ann. It'll be great.
Okay, couple of tips and tricks that I'm thinking of. First of all, when you're working with these kind of technology, remember, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Be prepared for that. I don't know if you saw, I got cut off on this call early, so that's okay. It happens. Just be prepared. But there are a few key things that I think can really help you just take things a little bit better. And even though I'm breaking a lot of these rules, here's some of the ones I really like. One is think about your space, right? You want to have a space where I can connect with you. So I don't necessarily need to be looking up your nose. I don't necessarily need to be looking at your feet. So look at that. What part of your body do you want people to see when you're talking, and practice it? The other thing, when you're choosing a space to have to be virtual, just remember any small thing like this apple, if it's there in the picture, everyone's going to be focusing on that. So we want to get rid of we want to get rid of as many distractions as possible. Now, we may have something in the background which tells us a little bit about who we are, and that's good, but not something where people are going to be wandering around worrying about stuff in the background. One of the biggest challenges we see when people are in their rooms is a fan light. It can cause the strobe effect while you're on there. So think about your space, think about how close you are, think about your lighting. If you can be facing a window, or I've got a little glow light in front of me, I find that really helpful. Think about the sound. Can you be in a room without echoes or barking dogs? Um, and I also, the good thing, and this is, I'll hand it right over to you, Carrie. The great thing about being virtual is I can have my cheat sheet in front of me, right? So if there are a few key words I really want to make sure, whatever I say, I want Tara to know that my product is organic, I've got it here on my keyboard, right? The other thing is, well, I'm not going to be eating my apple. I do have some water just in case, because we're all human and sometimes we get nervous. And it's good to be able to take a quick sip of water. Just don't spill it on your keyboard. Over to you, Carrie.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, the few things now, I don't know for this competition, Tara, are they all required to have their cameras on the whole time, or are they allowed to go dark when they're not presenting?
So this one, for the one-on-one interview, they need to have their camera on the whole time because we are emulating what would be them talking to a judge one-on-one. So they will have to have their camera on, but only one of the team members is required to talk. So let's just say you have 3 team members, but only one of you is talking. I would put the person that's talking in the middle and then your team members surrounding you.
Yeah, great. That's good. And that's important too. You want to think about, you're actually sitting in front of a potential investor. So really, same as you would in real life, you know, you want to be as professional looking and acting as you possibly can. So everything that Anne said is absolutely correct. Check your internet connection. And as she said, things happen. We get dropped. It happens to me too. We don't always have the best internet connection, but you know, you call back in as soon as possible. Make sure you can see what's going on behind you. If you can't get into a room that is, you know, semi, you know, bland and professional looking, put on a background, but put on a background that is, you know, like Anne's background is fine. Something like that where you aren't going to be distracting people. It's professional. You know, you don't want to have something that's inappropriate, certainly in the background, while you're trying to convince people that you need money for your innovation. And practice, right? Oh, and the other thing, please put your yeah. Although fun to be on The Simpsons, maybe not appropriate for investment. Please remember to put yourself on mute when you're not speaking, unless you have headphones that drown out every other noise. You know, sometimes we forget and all kinds of background noises come on, but those are, you know, everybody's got their own level of comfort with Zoom. So if it's not something that you're particularly comfortable with, practice, practice, practice. So that's all I have, I think.
All right, so we have just a couple of moments before Kyle and James come in. So I'm going to stop the share. Whenever we do this mock interview and when you guys are actually doing the interviews, you'll be timing yourself. So the judge will be timing you and you will be timing yourself. So I would suggest that you have your phone out, or if you need a stopwatch, whatever. I won't be able to be in everyone's room at the same time, and I don't have the staff to cover every single room either. So this is just something to think about. So Carrie, whenever you are interviewing James and Kyle, if you could, you guys will both have timers on. So when you're getting down to, well, not so much for Carrie, but for Kyle and James, and when you guys are interviewing, make sure you're watching your time. You can go under 5 minutes, but when that timer goes off at 5 minutes, you need to stop, and you don't want to be in the middle of a sentence and be cut off, and then you lose your train of thought, and then it looks unprofessional. So that's just something to think about.
You know, Sarah, I have one more thing. I'm sorry, but I need to back up because now that I'm looking at everybody's screens, one more tip about Zoom. Please put your first and last name so people know who you are.
Yes, that's a good tip. And then Carrie and Anne, I will just ask you guys as coaches, you know, and you've coached this before, how do you coach for this? What can coaches do to best prepare their students for this?
Practice.
Should we say it together?
Yeah. Well, and I'll just, Carrie and I have been able to help a lot of students practice, and I'm looking even at some of the students here on the screen that I already know. The first time, even if you know the answer, the first time the words come out of your mouth, you're gonna not sound as smart as you were hoping to sound, right? So get those like those uncomfortable stuff done with your coach, right? And we all know that we know what we want to say, and then you practice saying it, it doesn't come out. So to have a chance to be able to practice those things with a coach is huge. It's not the same as saying it in your head.
What are some of those
Yeah.
questions that you hear or that you prepare your students for that you know are coming?
Carrie, you want to jump on that, or?
Yeah, well, I'll start. Definitely be prepared for all of the items in your business model canvas, because that's where generally where the questions stem from. So who's your customer? What's this thing going to cost you to make? How do you plan on making money? Do you own your intellectual property? All of the things that are on that canvas are ripe for questions from the judges, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
And yeah, and I try to make in preparing. I often make two lists. The list of the questions that I hope they'll ask, that I know the answer to, and a list of the questions that I have no idea how to answer this, and I'm still struggling with it myself. Right? So you might be asked, tell me more about how you think you're going to break even on this, and you're like, yeah, I got it. How are you going to build that prototype? Yeah, I've got it. But there may be that question that it's sort of like it's sitting in the pit of your stomach. You're like, please don't ask me that question. That is definitely going to be a question you'll get. And so you want to prepare for it, right? And prepare for, when you get a question that you don't know the answer is, that's a good question. I've been talking to some people about it. I'm doing, this is what I'm doing, right? So practice that. And oftentimes, you will have in a judge, the judge will say, is there anything that I haven't asked you? So you do want to say, well, you haven't actually asked me about, how I know this is the right demographic. So get that list of what you want to answer, as well as what you're afraid to answer, so you can be comfortable with both of them. And don't let anyone throw you off your game. Sometimes people will say something that, and I've seen this a lot, and Tara and Carrie and I all have. You'll have a judge will ask you something that in their heart they think they're asking you a straightforward question, but it sounds like they're saying, you're an idiot, why are you here? Right? So just know that if somebody says something that just sets you off your game, just smile and reset. Don't let it happen, and just be prepared to tell your coach afterwards, like, oh, they were really horrible. That's another thing that coaches can be helpful for.
And I think that's a really good point. I will say one of the biggest things that judges say to me after the event is that I hate when students argue with me. It's okay for people to have different opinions, but do not sit there and argue with them or yell or get frustrated. If you have a difference of opinion, and that's okay. And Jess, maybe you can speak to this, because I know you've judged. How do you handle when a student gets upset, or when you give them a tough question, they might not necessarily, like Ann said, they don't know how to answer it, so they immediately get defensive. You're not going to score them as well if they're arguing with you.
Right. Well, I think just to take a step back for a second is, if you're prepared, right, if you've done the research, any judge can throw any question at you and you're going to have a good response, right? Kind of going back to what Carrie said before, if you think you have the best innovation and then, you realize after talking to a bunch of potential folks that maybe that's not something that they need, right? That you have to pivot, you can turn around and say to the judges, well, based on the evidence, right, here's what I found. And so again, it's not being defensive, but if you can turn around and talk about the evidence and talk about the data, right, then that's showing that you did the research and that maybe their opinion, right, and all of their years of expertise, maybe it's incorrect, but you're not doing it in a defensive way. You're doing it based on what the data and evidence has suggested to you. So I think where the judges, I think where they throw hardball questions is when you don't have the evidence to back up whatever claim it is you're putting out there, right? And then you have nothing to stand on. So that's, again, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased. I'm a librarian and I want to see the good research, but I think that's really going to set you up to be the most successful, right? Is to having the data to back up whatever claims it is you're trying to make. And it's just like, think about, you know, all of the classes that you guys have been in, and I'm sure that there's been instructors that you haven't always agreed with, right? Biggest mistake is to, like Tara said, be defensive. And so hear them out, thank them for their suggestions, right? Take back some of that information, pivot if you need to. And if you don't think pivoting is the best strategy, then make sure that you have the evidence to back it up to say, this is why I didn't make that change, right? So that would be my suggestion, Tara.
Perfect. Thank you, Jess. I see we have Kyle. Kyle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. James is coming on in 2 minutes here. I was trying to call him, but he can never be reached, so that's how it is. So hello everyone. Nice to be here. My name is Kyle Gillis. I'm the founder, one of the co-founders of Iconic Air. James will be on in a few minutes, and he's the other co-founder. Really excited to be here because I think this is kind of fascinating. You know, we were in exactly your shoes. I don't even know how long ago. What was it, Tara? Not 2 years ago, was
Right?
it?
It was 2 years ago. In 2000, you won in 2018, right?
I don't know. That feels long ago. That feels too long ago. I feel like it was last year, but yeah, we were in your shoes not that long ago is the point. And now we're on a semi-successful trajectory right now. So excited to be here and be able to answer your guys' questions and anything like that. I'm just gonna very upfront here throw my email in the chat here. And after this conversation, if you guys want to reach out or have any questions or anything, feel free to do that.
So Kyle, since you went through this competition and you can like look back, do you remember going through the semifinals and preparing for the pitch and preparing for the one-on-one? And is there anything that you would have done differently, or how did you prepare for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I remember the one you're referencing. Big ballroom, right? We did the pitch in the big ballroom, and then we went into a separate room for one-on-ones. Yeah. I wasn't sure what to expect when we did our one-on-ones. I mean, Tara gave us the rundown, right? But if you'd never been through a process like this, it can be a little intimidating. So I remember getting into the room in the one-on-ones, and there's like 10 tables set up, and we just rotated around the table. Some people had props, some people didn't, et cetera, et cetera. But I felt like we had like a cheat code because we had like a finished prop, and we kept making it like 20% better every time we ran into these same judges. And what was kind of unique about us in this scenario is that we had kind of like worked so hard the months leading up to the competition that inadvertently we had met a lot of the judges, not through anybody at WVU, but just through working hard and trying to get our name out in that state ecosystem. So I think something that you can't really control, or you can't control of your competitors, is that you know, these people are going to look at you guys like a real business. So if they see your name popping up around the state, or they're hearing it from colleagues just because you guys are working hard and they can tell you're taking this thing seriously, I think that's definitely a leg up. But yeah, when you sit down to talk with these judges, everyone's going to have a different thing. You have to realize, as hard as this is, to hard of a pillow as it is to swallow, this is kind of the real world now, right? So when you sit down with these judges, yes, they're going to have a rubric, but a lot of these guys are people who made, or women, or people who are self-made and made it based off of their principles and their intuition. So they're going to each have a slightly different rubric and personality to them, right? So even though the rubric is going to say X, Y, and Z, and here's how we're grading, they're going to take vibe and personality. And if they think you're just an amazing entrepreneur and you're going to knock it out the park, they might take you over someone who just had, you know, a slightly better score or something like that. And that's just kind of a something that I've realized over the past year or so.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, James. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Tara? How's it going, everyone?
All right. So we are going to try to recreate what an interview is going to look like. So if you guys would get into presenter mode, if you're, if you're looking at the whole group, I think it might be more beneficial to go into presenter mode. And Kyle and James are going to be pitching to Dr. Carrie White as if she is the judge. So they are going to, imagine they come into the room, they're going to start their 5-minute timers on their own. And it starts as soon as Kyle and James say, hi, my name is, my business is, and then Carrie will interact with them how she sees fit. So she can ask questions, or she could just stay silent and they have to keep talking. But you guys have 5 minutes. So I will let you guys time yourselves. And after 5 minutes, we'll turn it back and kind of do a debrief. Does that sound good?
Cool.
Yeah.
Just to give a quick framework here. So I think we're gonna do this thing with Carrie and then answer her questions. And then James and I each have a few small insights for at the end, or we can answer any of your questions or anything. I'll let you kind of guide all that there, Tara.
Perfect. That sounds great. So whenever you guys are ready, start your own timers on your end and then just stop whenever you get to 5 minutes.
All right. Sounds good. Give me 1 second. Okay. You out there, Carrie?
All right, we ready?
All right,
Yeah.
we're ready. I guess we can act like we're walking up to the table now and kicking this baby off.
Walking up to the table. Hi, Kyle. Hi, James. My name's Carrie. It's nice to meet you.
Hey, Carrie. Great to meet you.
Tell me about your innovation.
All right. So my name's Kyle. And I'm here today with my co-founder, James. Iconic Air is a software platform for the future of leak detection in the oil and gas industry. The leak detection market is outdated and it's ready to be disrupted. Over the last 5 years, new hardware technologies such as drones, IoT sensors, and high-tech cameras have been developed and put out into the market, but there's no one winning software out there yet to interpret all this information. Iconic Air is that solution. We're going to make the data actionable for our customers, EHS directors and managers. And this is going to unlock a $7 billion market opportunity for us. To date, we've raised about $10,000, and we've been able to talk to over 20 customers in this marketplace and lock in 2 pilots for Q1 of 2021. We're excited to talk with you today and ready to answer any of your questions.
All right, thank you, Kyle. That's a lot of information. Break it down for me. Who's your customer?
Yeah, so 2 exact customers we have are environmental health and safety directors at oil and gas companies, specifically majors. Think of people like Exxon. Another one is leak detection and repair managers. This would be a standard blue collar worker. Think of Mike, someone you're interacting with if you bring over a plumber to fix a pipe in your facility or at your house.
Have you talked to these people? Do they have any interest in what you've made?
We absolutely have, and it's been a mixed bag when talking with some of these people. But the underlying theme that we're seeing is they do need actionable. They need all of this data that they're receiving to be boiled down to an actionable, hey, go fix this leak at this location. And that's exactly how we've locked in our first 2 pilots, actually. They were both customers who were seeing that they had a lot of data and they didn't know how to interpret it at the time. And we're very excited for those 2 pilots that could potentially evolve into something more going into Q2 of 2021.
So are you guys building this technology on your own? Do you have other partners? And then second part, how much is it costing you to do all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Kyle and I are both co-founders. We're full-time on our venture. We have 3 other part-time software engineers that we work with. So they help us build our product. Obviously, we're young, we're hungry engineers, but we always have a lot to learn. So we surrounded ourselves with a great team of mentors and advisors that have built scalable products, have built these solutions before. That will help us as we commercialize this product out into the marketplace. And then your second question was around cost for the actual product itself, right? So
yes.
It depends on our current model is based off of a per facility cost and a per user cost. Right now, per user, if we store their data and all the stuff that they would upload for the year, it's around $73 per user. And then if we do it at a per facility cost, it's about $225 per facility. And that's just our raw cost of getting the product built and then storing the data.
And then how do you make money?
So we have a subscription-based model. It's similar to our costing structure for each facility they have on the platform. There's a cost. Right now it's about $1,000 per year. And then for each user they have signed on to the platform, it's $500 per month, which comes out to $6,000 per year. and that can range up from, a couple users up to several users across a company or facility.
So you take this technology to these major corporations. What's to stop them from just saying, thank you very much, we'll do this on our own?
Yeah, so I would say that from a IP standpoint, we tend to take the model of not actually filing for a patent, but basing our technology off of trade secrets, which is a common practice in the software development industry. Even if they were like, hey, we really like what you guys are doing, and we think we're just going to go out there and copy it, the chances of them being able to develop the stuff out internally is less likely. And then just a high level piece of information for you, Carrie, is within the oil and gas industry, why companies like ours tend to sell in the first 3 to 5 years is because the oil and gas industry has a little bit of trouble attracting attention. We think they have a big branding problem. So people who are technologists like ourselves, who are entering this market with a product, but more importantly, a awesome engineering team, tend to get bought out within the first 5 years, between 10 and $20 million.
All right, last question. How do you scale this? What are your plans to scale this business?
Yeah, so we actually, through the pilots, that we have signed up so far, the 2 that Kyle mentioned, that's kind of our first step in scaling. So first thing was get our, minimum viable product built, or MVP. And once we did that, we looked to sign up, as many folks as we could with pilots. We're still in that process of signing up more folks. So we're launching the pilots starting in Q1 of next year. And as we launch those and continue to iterate on our product, that's when we'll really look to scale out commercially and look to even tackle and look towards some of these larger oil and gas companies like Chevron, Shell, et cetera.
All right, so we're going to go
all right,
back.
well, I wish you luck. I wish you luck. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Carrie. It's great to meet you.
Okay, that was awesome. And you guys never cease to amaze me. So that was really cool. If there was anyone that has any questions, you guys can throw them into the chat, and I'll read them off to Kyle and James, but I will throw it back to Kyle and James to debrief and kind of talk about what they just did, and the process that they've gone through.
All right, so James, I'll start with this real fast here. So we haven't done that in quite a while, actually, but the immediate mistake that I can pick out here is you don't want that large 3-second gap of silence. So basically, just real high level, how James and I have approached this is we've developed it organically over time, right? You want to try to have if you have 2 people answering questions, you want them to answer about equally amount of questions, or for it to be known that you have your standard things that each of you are the experts on. So James and I have just done this enough that we came in here and we were like, okay, we aren't going to talk about this ahead of time. We're just going to roll in and just take the questions we normally take. And that's why we had that long pause for a minute, because neither of us were like used to taking that question. But James, do you have anything you want to point out, just covering like what we just said, and then you and I can kind of go into talking about, our experience.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just comment on that. That was the first thing that came to my mind too, as well as just make sure when you guys go in, especially, it being over Zoom, it could be very easy, for teams of 2 or 3 people to one person get very siloed in the questions and be the main person answering. And that's really the last thing that you want to be happening. You want to show that each person on the team's kind of champion thing and can talk to something very in depth. So really practice that out and make sure you just keep that in mind. I'll throw it back to you, Kyle.
Yeah, so I just have a few things I bulleted before jumping on here that I thought were really useful. This one actually isn't even written down. I'm just going to say it because it made me, when Carrie was talking, it made me realize just how it is this early in your guys' companies. Something you're going to realize is when you pitch different people on these things. Also, if you guys have pitched any investors, just put it in the chat, please. If anyone has pitched any investors yet to date, put it in the chat. But in general, what we've realized is it's hard this early when you're at the business plan level or West Virginia business plan competition, these one-on-ones. You're talking with people who aren't industry experts in whatever you're doing. Maybe they are, right? Maybe you're under a STEM category or some other category and they know about that thing. But that thing is still pretty general and pretty wide, right? Like, for example, when talking with Carrie just now, I had realized, wow, I forget, like Carrie is not going to have any knowledge at all on the oil and gas industry. Like maybe a little, but like not to the extent that we want her to. to be able to pitch in depth, right? To be able to go into the fine details. So you have to keep that in mind when talking to each of these individuals. It can be frustrating at times, right? Because you're like, no, my idea is going to win the day, or my solution is awesome because of X, Y, Z. But the people you're talking to, you essentially have to cater to your audience. So just keep that in mind, right? Being able to boil it down to metaphors, analogies, things that make it easy for them to understand. Put it in finance terms, right? Make everything a dollar amount at the end of the day. That seems to be helpful. I'm going to just start us off. I'm going to give you one point that I wrote down. It's something that I think James and I have realized through hundreds of these types of pitches. And then James, I'll toss it over to you for one, and we can just bounce back and forth for a minute. So on my side, I have hype versus substance, right? How much of your business should be hype versus substance with these one-on-one conversations? Any business plan at West Virginia business plan, in my mind, it should be split, right? This is something that we've realized. It's like half and half, right? Half your business is you really have developed something that's amazing, and you got it in progress, and or maybe you secured a pilot. That's substance to me. Securing a pilot, that's substance. Securing customers, doing customer discovery, that's substance. The hype is we won this award, we won that award, we have these advisors, here's the mentors of our team, we know the CEO of this organization. If you don't put those things out there, people aren't going to take you serious sometimes. It's not going to generate your company a buzz. How are you going to attract top talent? How are you going to get investors to listen to you, right? So we just won, put out there, we just won the Forbes 30 Under 30 thing. We have more investors. We have not gained anything in substance in the past month, but we had 50 more investors contact us. Like that's a pure, you know what I mean? So it's like every time, I call it hype, but they call it de-risking, right? De-risking their portfolio. You're risky right now in their mind, but you're de-risked when you win these awards and accolades and nice things, but it's not really moving your business forward. So you have to kind of balance these things. James, over to you.
Yeah, great points, Kyle. I think a lot of you guys probably picked up as soon as we started the interview. One of Carrie's first questions was, who's your customer, who's your user. I think that's so important, and something that Kyle and I think early entrepreneurs do, is you have a vision of like who your customer is and what your product does for them. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you think of it or how you think it solves a problem. It's got to be what the customer thinks of it and how the customer thinks it solves their problem. So really leverage and hone in on those customer interviews that we know you guys have to do, and come to the table and be able to talk to them, be able to say, I talked to Bill from X company and he said this. I talked to Laura from this company and she said this, and really paint this picture of who your customers are, and really try to put a name, a face, and a title, a persona to them, so that the judges can really see like, wow, these people have really taken the time to really understand their customer, really understand their pain that they're solving for them. So just kind of keep that mindset as you guys go over the next couple of months and come into the next round.
Yeah, good point. And just to drive that point home, what James just said, Jessica, I think you were saying something about it when I got on here. Rebuttaling like questions they have by leading with facts and information. This is literally what the NSF customer discovery process teaches you, right? A funny story, James and I got into this investor conversation with these guys from Houston who really know what they're doing in the oil and gas industry. And we got in this long-winded 2-hour, James, I don't remember, spat back and forth about why our technology is going to like take over oil and gas. And they just kept not understanding it, right? And there were definitely points of that conversation when things get a little heated where you just, you want to be able to just throw something out there, right? And explain why your thing's the best thing ever. But the reality is unless you lead with some sort of data set or information that you're hearing, you really have nothing to stand on. You're just on a soapbox at that point. So even, no matter what it is, no matter how much it's true, you have to be able to lead with some type of information. So something that Iconic has done in our decks that make us seem like more like thought leaders, like we have a true understanding of which we do, I think, at this point, is we now have Iconic's insights. We literally put it in our deck, insights that we are seeing in the industry. Why? Because we are out in the industry talking to just as many people as some of the Fortune 500 companies in the industry. We have talked with just as many people with just as high of ranks as they have. Therefore, we have the same, we don't have the experience they do, but we have the same up-to-date information as they do that can talk about what's happening because of COVID, what's happening because of the trends in the industry, et cetera. Yeah, so I'll get off my soapbox here. I'll say one more thing and then pass over to James for the last one. We can answer any questions you have. Just to reiterate this. My last point here is if anyone listens to Gary Vaynerchuk, he says this all the time, but it's just, I believe it so much. It's jockey versus the horse, right? And invest in the investment world. I imagine most of you are trying to gain investments of some sort post this competition or whatever. And the jockey versus the horse. The horse is the company, the idea, the market wave that you're about to ride, right? The thing that you're pitching. But the jockey is you, the person who's running the company, the entrepreneur. And he always says jockey over the horse, because the idea is when you're in early stage investments, which is the area that you guys are in right now, you're just trying to get it maybe a $50,000 check or $100,000 check or an aggregate amount of checks that add up to that amount. You're not selling the company as much as you are selling yourself. You're saying that you're a winner. You're saying that you're going to be able to prevail at the end of the day and that you need to stand out. And I think James and I didn't know that at first, and we started to figure that out along the way. A very practical way of doing that is by sending these investors that regular updates. We could get better at this, but monthly, quarterly, whatever updates. If they see that you started at this point and then they see 6 months later you're at this point, they're going to realize jockey over the horse, you're winning the day. And I think we're hopefully going to land on investments from Country Roads Angel Network here shortly and soon. And I don't think Kevin has, or I don't think the guy in charge of Cran has any idea what we're doing right now, business size, like what the idea is. But I think that he just believes so much in us over the past 3 months and seeing us change. He's like, we're just going to give you a bunch of money and we think you're going to do something amazing with it. And like that's what you want to inspire out of your investors at the end of the day. All right, over to you, James.
Yeah, great points, Kyle. I think just to wrap it up, in terms of any of the points we're making, it's short and sweet for me, is just be confident and know that you guys have worked hard to get to this point, and go in, do your due diligence ahead, and just, come ready to the pitches and the Zooms to just be your best and show your product and your idea. Now I just kind of want to open up for any questions you guys have. Kyle and I have done a ton of pitches, ton of competitions, investor calls, anything under the sun. I feel like for the most part, at least, we've covered it by now. So please take some time and really try to think of some questions or things that we can answer for you guys that would really help you propel and continue to excel in your businesses.
I'll start with a question. Some have said Kyle and James are kind of like yin and yang. So you guys have a great partnership. And when you were in the competition, you had an additional partner, and now you have hired people. I see all the time in this competition, people want to protect their ideas. They want to work individually. They don't want help. And they're really apprehensive to adding team members. What do you think about that?
James, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I think just the raw answer, just to be fully transparent with you guys, is that you probably don't want to do that. It's a tough. Some investors won't even talk to you or have early on discussions if you're a solo founder. So you want to try to work and find someone that complements you. I think to Tara's point, that's one good thing about Kyle and myself, is that we complement each other very well. You guys could probably tell that just from the 10 to 15 minutes we've already been on this call. And I think that that's super important. So don't be afraid to work and try to find that person. You might not find them right away. It might take you a couple people to figure out who you work well with, who you gel with, who you jive with. But, being an entrepreneur is a marathon, and you got to have someone to come on that journey with you to help you when you don't get all the wins or expectations you have. So I think it's very important to help you as you grow your business.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another thing that I'll add on to that is that I think James and I had this same exact mentality early on. James, I think you remember when we first did the iconic EDU kits, we were hesitant to call 2 or 3 STEM EDU companies in West Virginia because we were afraid they were going to take our ideas. We were literally like hot off the press, like, no, we're the innovative company. They're going to steal our stuff. We can't let them see it. Looking back to that time, a year and a half ago, I'm like laughing at ourselves now because it's so silly. It's like, I promise you guys, not to be a slap in the face to anyone, but I promise anyone, any of your ideas that are in the competition right now, I don't know any of them, but any of the ideas you have, you should not be afraid to tell any of them to anyone, like even your competitors. Like it's a silly idea. And I think people spend way too much safeguarding what they have. And you don't even realize how much potential there is in partnership and working with other people and how far you have to go. We were protecting our ideas before we even understood our market. Like we should have, like we have calls next week with a lot of our competitors. And I just believe that's what you should be doing in terms of like figuring out what's in the market and how you can benefit each other, etc. I think everyone will figure that out along the way, though.
All right, we have a couple of questions. The first one is, you mentioned that there have been moments where you have gotten into some back and forths with potential investors. Since these can sometimes get heated, as you said, what is some advice that you have found useful to diffuse those situations?
So I guess James is better at this than I am, but I'll start with just clarifying. Out of a lot of investor conversations, that has happened one time. So one out of a lot that has happened. Yeah, I think with what Jessica mentioned earlier, honestly, I think it's that all of your points. First of all, you should be calm, cool, and collected through all these conversations. Like that's not even a question. And I think that everything you say should be led with insights and data, right? Stand on a good foundation. I'll throw it over to James though, because he's actually better with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Kyle said is very valuable. You never want to be making claims or getting yourself in a situation where you can't back up what you just said. So I think if you go into that mindset, when you do get into a heated discussion, or maybe someone has a complete different view on the marketplace than you do, I think, you stand your ground, but you stand it respectfully. And if it comes to a point where they maybe are getting a little aggressive or really getting heated, and you can kind of feel it getting some tension building up, just take a step back, really take a breath and just defuse the situation and in a way kind of take the lower seat, right? Because at the end of the day, they're an investor. They're coming with potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, depending on who you're talking to. And you never want to burn a bridge or ruin a relationship. And they know a bunch of people too. So you don't want to upset anyone or step on toes, but you also want to stand your ground, when necessary. And kind of, it's a sweet balance. And that just comes with practice and getting yourself into those situations. And you just kind of get better and evolve.
Great. Thanks, James. Okay, so the next question is, was there anything you wish you would have done differently / better? And I'm assuming that that is regarding the business playing competition specifically.
I wish we would have talked to more customers and better understood the marketplace when doing the West Virginia business plan competition. I feel like we really missed the boat on that one. I felt like we pitched something in the West Virginia business plan competition that was a solid idea, and it had feet, and we were doing pilots at the time at schools. But post the business plan competition, we also realized that the thing that we had just pitched wasn't as bulletproof as we thought it was, and that's good, right? Because that means you're progressing. That means you're doing the right thing, and you're becoming a real business. I would literally just talk to as many customers as you can. There's no reason why within X amount of months you guys can't be like literally know your market. Like you need to be one of the best people who know your market better than anyone else, even like the real competitors out there. And I know your students, but the idea is you can make phone calls, you can get involved and jump in the water. James.
Yeah, I think, I agree with everything Kyle just said. We had a pretty good prototype at the time, but I think for you guys, that should be a real key thing you focus on is if there's that time frame between now and when you're gonna sit down with the judges, really try to come with something physical. I think from some of our friends who were even in the competition when we went through it that maybe didn't win or didn't get to the next round, I think that was something that they regretted, was that they maybe didn't have as a solid prototype. It was more still like an idea. And when you can show a judge something or point to it, or even just show a picture of a mock-up or something, it resonates with them so much better. So I think that's a big thing for you guys as you go into this next round.
Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, next question. What did you do to combat the anxiety or nerves when you were first starting to present your ideas?
I'll kick this one off. I don't know if Kyle gets nerves, honestly, when he talks. He's that's why we call him the pitch man. But I think for me, I probably struggle with that a little bit more. I think you just got to keep doing it and take a deep breath. Just be confident and go in there and set yourself up for success. Right, go in there, practice. I know sometimes I like to probably practice too much to where it almost sounds recited, but really just make sure you're prepared. And I think that will kind of ease some of the nerves you might have and any tensions, and just take a deep breath and just keep swinging. There's always another try to get better and get it right.
Kyle, do you get nerves? Do you have nerves?
Yeah, I get nerves. I definitely get nerves. I get nerves. I just tend to, I get nervous. I'm just gonna say one more thing. tend to overtalk here. There's a dichotomy to these things, guys, right? So like something that James is very good at here and why we got into so many pitch competitions across the country is there's two sides to this whole equation. There's working the system. So right now you're working the West Virginia Business Playing Competition system, the West Virginia University system to maximize your chances of winning, right? So there are things you have to do to try to meet the rubric's goals, right? But then you have all these other things that you actually have to do for your business. And I just want to point out, you have to do both of these things, right? So like we got into how many Carnes, like 8 to 10 like national competitions. And it's because we even though we didn't want to, because it was like sidetracking us from the business and sometimes it wasn't useful. You have to do those things to get into some of these competitions.
Perfect. Okay, we have another, this is the last question unless anyone else wants to jump in the chat. What was your biggest learning curve? What was something surprising that you learned from your investors and customers?
That's a good question. What was your biggest learning curve? James, if you have something, you can go first. I'm still thinking.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of gut reaction to that, I think, is that being an entrepreneur is almost like speaking a language. And the sooner that you can understand the language and the way that these people talk and understanding what a minimum viable product is and market sizing and all these different things, the sooner that you can kind of understand that and be able to easily talk to it and understand in all these different meetings or situations that you'll be in, kind of the faster and better success that you'll have, because you can then better communicate your idea to people and better communicate your business or the problems you're facing. So I just think being able to get yourself in situations where you're kind of always building that understanding of the kind of entrepreneurship lingo and terms.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll just add one more thing onto what he said there. It's if you guys really do want to become entrepreneurs post this competition or whatever, the only difference between me and James and some of our friends who also were in the West Virginia Business Playing Competition who have full-time jobs now and probably can't go back to being in entrepreneurship just because of life and what they have on their plate now. The only difference between us and them is that we got in the pool and we stayed in the pool. The sooner you do that, especially as being a student, and you do what Karn says, you learn the language and you understand how these models work and these systems work and you take advantage of them, the better, if that's what you really want to do. Because once you get out of school, you get a house, you get a family, you get a girlfriend, you get a boyfriend, whatever. And there's just sometimes no going back.
Yeah, those are really great points. Okay, we do have another question. Have you guys reached out for mentorship in the respective field of your idea? If so, how did you go about establishing that relationship?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. I think this is something that we've done a great job at on all sides of the spectrum, whether it was from Kyle reaching out and talking with different folks in marketing and sales and even just in industry across oil and gas, or me reaching out on more of the technical side and understanding of some of these technologies we're working with. You have to do it. It's essential to your success. And I think what we did to really talk and get intros to these people is just leverage our existing network, which just brings back to the point of like, you should always be working with different groups, going to the launch lab, working and talking with as many different folks as you can, as many different competitions and grants, because the more you get yourself out there, everyone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. And I can't tell you how many times that chain effect of connections has helped us get an intro to someone that's become either a key hire or a key mentor, for our business. So just always be, I know it's cliche, but just always be networking and being intentional with your relationships as you're meeting people.
Yeah, I'll speak on that. I think it's extremely important to do exactly that, right? Get mentors in that respective field, because that's how you know if you're really pushing the innovative boundaries or if you're just another idea. If you're just another idea, no big deal, but get out there, get out on the edge. Carrie, do you remember we were in the launch lab? Do you remember us pitching our EDU kits and 5 females would come up at the end? And it was like our advising committee for education. It was like Dr. Anchester and like you, and then it had like all these people. And that was the chain effect that James is talking about. We would talk to Dr. Anchester. She'd put us in touch with 2 or 3 more like national, like renowned people in education. And we talked to them and be like, can we pick your brain and put you on our presentation XYZ? And that's what led us to all these kind of game-changing ideas. And now that we're in oil and gas, that's all that matters. Literally the only investors we talk to are oil and gas investors. The only people who we care to talk to who are doing deep technology stuff are people who are oil and gas, deep technology stuff, because we need to make sure that we're actually innovating the industry and not just pitching people on something they don't know anything about now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And yes, for people that didn't know, that they came from the Launch Lab, and Carrie and Ann and everyone here. So we have lots of great resources. And just to throw this out, Dr. Carrie White has offered anyone that needs additional help. If you're having trouble getting a coach, the Launch Lab is here to help you. Even if you don't attend West Virginia University, you can reach out and get those resources. And then we have one final question. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I know that you are busy men. So the last question revolves around sales. How successful have you been in getting to decision makers versus gatekeepers versus blockers? What are some of those tactics that you have used to get to the decision makers?
Yeah, love this question. I think that a lot of this, I think James and I both have our individual tactics. Now the roles have kind of changed. I'm kind of out wading in the waters trying to talk to these people on the sales side. James is now working with a full engineering team trying to build an amazing product. When we're out there talking with people, it is very much hand-to-hand combat. I wish there was a very like sexy romantic view of this and like just like the movies of sales, but it is very much, you have to attend every conference, you have to pick up the phone and call every person. At the end of every call, you have to ask, who do you know that I can talk, who do you think I should talk to that can tell me more about this? Leverage your student status. If you don't put in every single freaking email that you send out that you're doing research and that you're a student at WVU trying to break into this industry, if you don't make it sound like David and Goliath in every email, like you're really messing up, because people will open crazy doors for you. You guys could talk to CEOs, COOs, directors on boards just by leveraging you're a student trying to break into this industry and you have a great idea. So how successful have you been in getting? We've been pretty successful at it by leveraging that exact methodology that I just kind of pitched you. It gets harder as you rise up though. Once you get deep in your industry, you'll realize like the pool gets smaller. Like let's say you're in the baking bread industry. There's really like a very small community of people that are like really doing a great job at baking bread, and they'll all know each other. So it's important you keep a good vibe with all of them.
Just get in the trenches. That's all I'll add. A great explanation, Kyle. I also, guys, am in dropping our emails in the chat. So feel free at any point to reach out directly if you have any questions or if we can help in any way at any time. Always feel free. We're on LinkedIn, wherever. So ping us and we'll always get back and try to help in any way we can.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate your time today. That was very insightful. Thank you for sharing your contact information. So guys, if anyone has any additional questions, you can email them. It's in the chat. But we will say goodbye and thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Guys, good luck, everyone.
Bye. All right, so I need to do this and switch. Are we looking okay? Okay, who did interview? Carrie, do you kind of want to talk about this? Do you want me to talk about it?
Either or. If you want to go, certainly.
So this one's a little more simplistic, I would say, than the customer discoveries. The judges, when they are interviewing you, you only have 5 minutes to make this kind of impact on them. So they are looking for passion, your ability to answer questions, viability of the actual business itself, is it feasible, professionalism, and overall impression. So I will say for the professionalism and the overall impression, these kind of go hand in hand. I get this question a lot. If I want to open a restaurant, can I wear what I would wear in the restaurant, my chef outfit? Can I wear my chef hat? Absolutely. You can dress to what your industry is. You do not have to wear a suit and tie. That is completely up to you. It's the image that you want to give off. When you see the word professionalism, I would just take that seriously in the sense of maybe you don't want to go into a finance or banking industry, but that doesn't mean show up in your Nirvana t-shirt. At least look professional, have that professional background that we were talking about. We were talking about the tips and tricks, make sure you have the correct lighting on. And as everyone has said, prepare for those questions. And if you don't have, if you're not agreeing with the judge, do not argue. use your facts. Make sure you are aware of the data and just give the facts. And I think that will serve you well. But again, I will be emailing all of the rubrics out to you. So we will keep it moving because we got a little bit behind on our schedule. So I am going to talk a little bit about the elevator pitch, and then I will talk or send it over to Ann Jones for you guys to talk about strategy for that. So the elevator pitch this year, we are going to use YouTube videos. This can be up to 2 minutes. And when I say 2 minutes, that does not mean 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It has to be less than 2 minutes. This will be due February 1st, and you'll just submit that on Reviewer. So it'll just be that YouTube link. Make sure that your YouTube is public, because we have seen this happen before where you submit your YouTube and then the judge goes, I can't view it because you had it on private. So make sure that that YouTube link is public for the judges to view, and then they will score. Again, only one team member is required to speak, but you can have as many of your team members speaking as you wish, and you can do whatever you would like. If you want to show your prototype, if you want to walk around, if you want to use a PowerPoint presentation behind you, you can do whatever you think is best. All right, so I will kick it off to Ann.
Hey, thanks, Tara. All right, so I really only have, let me tell you about 2 things about pitching your idea, right? If you can focus on these 2 things. 1 is the goal, and 2 is KISS. So the goal is know what you want to accomplish when you're pitching your idea. So in knowing what you want to accomplish, that means your job when you're doing this 2-minute pitch, your job is to get people to want to know more and want to say, hey, this is something I might be interested in investing in, right? That is your goal. Your goal is not to get them to work for you. Your goal is not to get them to buy your product. Just you want them to say, yeah, I'm interested in learning more. I'm interested in investing, right? So keep focused on that goal. And the second thing is KISS. Keep it simple, superstar. Or there are other S's. So it's, and I thought that James and Kyle talked about this really well, is the fact that oftentimes you're talking to people who may be very bright but don't understand your idea. And sometimes for some of us, when we're still in the starting stage, we're really bright and we don't understand our idea, right? We're still working it out, right? So that's why simplicity is so important. So what I do when I'm putting together a pitch like this, I think of these 4 steps, and these 4 steps serve as a framework for me to make sure that what I'm saying is clear and makes sense. And you may have noticed that when I explain this, that Kyle kept to these 4 steps. The first is your intro, right? Who are you? And what are you going to talk about, right? And the way you introduce yourself, the words you choose are like the keywords that are going to get me interested, right? My name is Anthony and I am a dog owner, right? My name is Xavier and I'm a cross-country runner. My name is Ryan and I grew up on a cattle farm. What are the key things that I need to know? So you don't need to go into great detail, but just a few things. And also, what school you're at. The next thing is the problem you've identified. So we think about intro, problem, and when Kyle was talking about his, he was talking about leak detection, right? This is who I am. Here's the problem we've seen. What you guys want to do is explain what is the problem that you've identified and for whom, right? I've identified that there is, it's very difficult to get local food in rural areas in West Virginia. I've identified that there is a need for leashes that are better for large, unruly dogs. I've identified, that there is a need for a certain type of service in my area. Be clear and make it come alive to me. If you're talking about a problem, and again, Kyle and James really talked about that, Make it come alive to me. Use sensory words, create a vision. Tell me about what it sounds like, what it smells like. What is that problem? Anytime you can talk about your problem using the senses, the more I'm going to be able to remember it and talk about the next person to the next person. The third thing is, what's your value proposition, right? So you've introduced yourself. This is who I am. This is the problem I've identified, and often for whom this is a problem. And here's my solution value proposition. Now, again, some of you have, a straightforward product that I totally get, right? I've got a company that bakes wedding cakes, but some of you may have a product that is far more technically specific. What's really important is that you don't have to teach me electrical engineering for me to understand your idea. What you need to do when you talk about that value proposition is tell me what the benefit is to me or to your customer. The benefit for this is, thank you, Tara. The benefit for this is that it saves money for young college graduates. The benefit is it is all the quality of a regular racing bicycle, but it can be put in the trunk of your car. What is the benefit? So don't get yourself tripped up in a lot of the technology. Tell me about the benefit. And then the ask. So the ask can be, here you want people to invest in you. So your ask might be, I'm hoping you'll be interested in investing. I'd like to tell you more about it. Sometimes your ask is, I would like to further this conversation. I am hoping to build a working prototype next, right? But when you keep with these 4 things, that's going to really help you make sure that you've covered everything and it's memorable. Because I see there are 22 people on the call right now, so I don't know, about out of 22 of you, let's say there, 18 of you are going to be putting this pitch together. If I am watching 18 2-minute videos, my head is going to be spinning, right? What was Jenna's idea? What did Chase say? What did Ryan say? So you do want to make sure, keep it clear, keep it focused, and that makes it memorable. Couple of key things on this, and we talked about the sort of sense, like set up, like figure out where you're going to be filming this. I tend to think that we all do a lot better when we've got someone cheering us on. So if you can have somebody standing behind the camera while you're speaking, it just makes it a little bit easier to present yourself. And the other thing is that when I'm presenting, and again, Kyle and James talked about that. James said sometimes he over prepares, right? Definitely do a couple of run-throughs, practice saying this, practice timing it. I don't ever have a script in front of me, but I'll have keywords in front of me, maybe even taped to my laptop while I'm speaking. If I have a script in front of me, then I end up sort of reading it like that the whole time. So have that down there and practice a couple of times out loud before you go and do it. And it absolutely needs to be 2 minutes or under. You do not want to have your big finale be cut off at the end. Are there any questions about this? Okay, should I mention the pitch scoring rubric?
Yeah, so I think that this is a good spot to kind of just say everything that you just covered goes into, at the end, you're asking for something. You're asking to go to the next round. You're asking for a certain amount of money. You're asking for them to invest. And this is the question that they're going to be answering. Would you invest in this business? Yes or no? And you have to give them the reasons why they would invest in them. And I think, Anne, that was a perfect, breakdown of what they need to put, because it's only 2 minutes, right? They have to get a lot of information out very, very quickly. And I hear all the time, it's tell your story and get it out, get your ask out. And this one is a very simplistic rubric. So I can
Right.
throw it back to Ann and Carrie for comments.
Thanks. And you know, the one other thing, it's interesting. You may have 30 minutes of information, but I only have 2 minutes of brain bandwidth, right? So don't worry about trying to jam every single piece of information into your video. Hit a few points. And remember, if there's only, when you think, if there are only two things that you want that judge to remember, what would they be? And make sure they are in there. Here's a good way to check that. Have somebody who hasn't listened to your pitch before listen to you give your 2-minute pitch, and then say, so what do you remember about what I said? And that can be very telling, because they may say something that you didn't think that they would that they would remember. Let me see. Did I say? Do I need to be visible in the video for the whole time, or could I also show pictures or pitch or the pitch in a YouTube video? You know, I think that's there are no right answers. There are definitely some good wrong answers. So yes, I think there are often times when people want to, you know, cut away to show their product, and I think that can be absolutely valuable and totally work. People usually want to see your face at least once, but not everyone wants to spend that 2 minutes doing that. So I think that's fine. And the other thing with prototypes, some of us have prototypes and some of us don't. But again, me showing my Apple again, you can always use, if you don't have a prototype, you can use a product to help a little bit, either in the questions or in your pitch. Even though this product will be able to light up a football field, it's the size of this apple, right? I don't need to have the light bulb in front of me. So
I'll just throw this one to Ann as well. There's another question in the chat that says, what is a good way to explain multiple problems we are looking to correct while not overwhelming someone? And I think that could be addressed in the pitch as well. You know, you have a lot to address and you only have 2 minutes. How do I do that?
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's a huge challenge, because again, the judge, the audience, their brain is not going to expand any bigger to hold all that information. One of the things I find helpful is put it in categories, right? So, you know, if you say there are two issues that we're trying to address, you know, I did it poorly, but the way I did it, the two things I want to address are focus on your goal and keep it simple, right? So try to categorize. So if you have a whole lot of stuff that you want to mention, try to give the category title. We are focusing on issues in the area of price and air quality. Does that help a little bit? Anyone?
I will keep monitoring the chat, but I will assume that answered the question if we don't have a follow-up question.
Right.
One other thing that I would say about this video, since this is the first time that we'll be doing the video, be creative. You know, think outside of the box. I'm really excited because I've never seen, you know, these done. We had a competition with elementary students this summer, and it was really incredible to see what they came up with, and how, you know, one team walked around and read, they had memorized a script, and because that related to their business, they wanted to do an app you know, about their community, so they walked around their community while talking about the business. Another one did a PowerPoint. Another one did showed their prototype. They worked with animals, so they had their dog in the video. You know, they were just all very, very creative. So don't feel like we are putting you in this box and you have to do, everyone has to look the same, because I don't think that would be the most beneficial. I think that judges are going to remember the ones that were really creative, but also still got their point across.
Absolutely. Tara, I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the reasons why I really like sticking to a format. That gives you the freedom to be really creative, right? If you know that I'm going to tick these boxes, I'm going to answer these questions, and then that releases you to be as creative as you want. Absolutely. Tara, I want to mention one thing, and I'll just a teaser, but we'll send out more. during probably starting back again in January, we have at WVU we have Tuesday evening mini meetings where people have a chance to practice pitching an idea and stuff like that. So anybody who, whether you're at WVU or not, we'll make sure that you're all invited to participate those. And it's nice. It's just nice to be in a small group to practice saying this kind of stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Anne, for offering that to everyone in the competition. That's really kind of you. So it doesn't look, and we did hear there was a follow-up that said, yes, that did answer the question. So thank you for answering that. You guys can feel free to keep asking questions in the chat, but we're going to keep moving forward so we stay on time. Just another reminder, we have resources on the website for you, and they are broken down by round 1, round 2, round 3. We have videos, we have articles. And in this video that of recording today, I will put into a YouTube link, and it will also go onto the website. But once again, Carrie mentioned it, I have emailed it out. We really suggest that you read Talking to Humans. This is a very short book. It is a quick and easy read, and it is free. So please, take the opportunity to read that. And again, I will be sending out this PowerPoint so you have another way to get that link. Oh, yep. There's no. That's me reading Talking to Humans. All right. So I am going to say good luck. Any other questions? It does not look like it, but if everyone would come off of, what are we on? Off your black screen, I would really like it if we could take a picture together. So if you could turn your camera on, everyone. I'm going to give you the countdown so everyone's ready. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay.
So are you taking the picture with the camera, or are you doing it from Zoom?
I'm doing a screenshot with the
Okay.
snippet
All
tool.
right. All right.
Okay, gang, ready? 1, 2. Okay, let me do another one just in case. Save as. Let's do. I don't know. I'm not sharing my screen. Am I right?
Hey, now, do you want me on here? I'm one of the coaches. You want
Yes, you're in here. You're in here, Clinton. You're part of the gang. Okay,
right.
we're going to do it one more time. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was great. I like the couple picture. That was cute. All right, guys. Well, if we don't have any other questions, have a really fantastic evening. We ended early. You get 5 minutes back in your day. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to stay on for a couple of minutes. I will stop the recording, and if you have any questions you'd like to talk to me privately about, I will be here. So thank you.